Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost closing time at his repair shop on Frontier Station Alpha 7. The small space station sat at the edge of human space, where traders and travelers stopped to fix their ships before heading into the unknown. Jake had been working as a mechanic for 5 years now. He was good at his job, and people knew it. When ships broke down, their owners came to Jake. He could fix almost anything that flew through space. Old cargo ships, fancy racing ships, even the weird alien ships that sometimes stopped by. Jake could make them work again. The station was quiet tonight. Most of the traders had already left for their next stops. Jake was cleaning his tools when he heard a loud bang from the docking bay. He looked out the window and saw sparks flying from a ship that was trying to land. The ship was unlike anything Jake had seen before. It was sleek and beautiful, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. The metal looked strange, too. It changed colors in the light, shifting from silver to blue to purple. But the ship was clearly in trouble. Black smoke poured from its engines, and it wobbled as it tried to dock. Jake grabbed his emergency kit and ran to the docking bay. The ship finally landed with a harsh scraping sound. The engines made a dying whine and then went silent. Jake could see damage all along the hull, burn marks and holes that looked like weapon fire. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. A figure stepped out wearing a full environmental suit that covered them from head to toe. The suit was the same color-changing material as the ship. Through the helmet's dark glass, Jake could see nothing of the person inside. "Hello," the figure said. The voice came through a small speaker and sounded soft and musical, but Jake could tell it was being translated by a computer. "I need help with my ship." Jake looked at the damaged vessel. "Looks like you had some trouble out there." "Pirates attacked me," the figure said simply. "My engines are failing. I barely made it here." The person reached up and touched something on their helmet. "My name is Lyra. I know this is a human station, but I have nowhere else to go. Can you help me?" Jake studied the alien ship. Most mechanics would turn away a job like this. Alien technology was complicated and dangerous. If something went wrong, it could kill you. But Jake had always been curious about how things worked, even alien things. "I can take a look," Jake said. "But I've got to warn you. I've never worked on a ship like this before." "That is more than most would offer," Lyra said. "Thank you." Jake walked around the ship, examining the damage. The burn marks were clearly from energy weapons. Whoever had attacked this ship had been serious about destroying it. But it was the engine damage that worried Jake most. He could see melted metal and twisted parts through the holes in the hull. "This is pretty bad," Jake said. "Your quantum core is damaged. Most of your engine crystals are cracked or missing. It's going to take time to fix this." "I have time," Lyra said. "But I must tell you, I do not have many credits. I lost most of my cargo when the pirates attacked." Jake thought about this. The repair would be expensive. The parts alone would cost more than most people made in a month. But something about Lyra's situation bothered him. She was alone, far from home, and in trouble. Jake had never been able to turn away from someone who needed help. "Don't worry about the credits right now," Jake said. "Let's see what we're dealing with first." Jake opened his toolkit and pulled out a scanner. He pointed it at the ship's engine bay and frowned at the readings. The technology was incredibly advanced, far beyond anything humans had built, but the basic ideas were the same. Engines needed fuel, power, and control systems. The ship just did it all in ways Jake had never seen before. "Can I go inside?" Jake asked. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but please be careful. Some systems are still active. The inside of the ship was as beautiful as the outside. Everything was smooth and curved, with no sharp edges anywhere. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. Strange symbols moved across display screens like living words. Jake made his way to the engine room. What he saw there made him whistle in amazement. The engine was like a work of art. Crystalline structures held balls of contained energy. Glowing tubes carried power throughout the ship like veins carrying blood. It was the most beautiful machine Jake had ever seen. It was also dying. Several of the crystals were dark and cracked. Energy leaked from broken connections. The main fusion chamber flickered weakly, barely holding together. This is incredible, Jake said. I've never seen technology like this. How does it work? Lyra stepped up beside him. The crystals focus quantum energy from the fusion core. They must be perfectly aligned or the whole system fails. Jake nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. The ship didn't just use mechanical parts, it used the relationships between energy and matter in ways humans were just starting to learn about. But the basic problem was still the same as any broken engine. Things that should connect were broken. Parts that should work together were out of alignment. I think I can fix this, Jake said finally. It's going to take time, and I'll need to make some custom parts. But the principles are the same as any engine. Lyra turned toward him, and even through her helmet's dark glass, Jake could sense her surprise. You truly believe you can repair it? I won't know until I try, Jake said. But I've never met a machine I couldn't fix eventually. For the first time since she had arrived, Lyra seemed to relax slightly. Then I will leave it in your hands, Jake Martinez. I hope your confidence is not misplaced. Jake grinned and picked up his tools. Don't worry. By the time I'm done with her, your ship will run better than new. As Jake began to work, he had no idea that he was about to repair the ship of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. To him, Lyra was just another traveler in trouble, and her ship was just another puzzle to solve. It was exactly the kind of simple human thinking that would soon change everything. Jake started work on Lyra's ship early the next morning. He had spent most of the night reading everything he could find about quantum engines and crystalline power systems. Most of it was way above his head, but Jake had learned long ago that you didn't need to understand everything to fix something. You just needed to understand enough. The first problem was getting the right tools. Jake's normal equipment wasn't designed for alien technology. The energy readings were different. The connections used materials he had never seen, and even the basic measurements didn't match human standards. But Jake was good at making things work. He took apart some of his diagnostic equipment and rebuilt it to read alien energy patterns. He melted down scrap metal and formed new connecting cables. When he couldn't find the right crystals to replace the broken ones, he ground down human-made focusing gems until they fit. Lyra watched him work with growing amazement. She had expected the human to give up after a few hours. Her people's technology was centuries ahead of human science. Even most alien mechanics couldn't repair Zephyrian ships without specialized training and equipment, but Jake approached each problem like it was just another puzzle. When the quantum scanner couldn't read the energy levels correctly, he rewired it with parts from 3 different devices. When the replacement crystals didn't fit properly, he carefully reshaped them by hand until they aligned perfectly. How did you know to do that? Lyra asked as Jake finished installing a modified power coupling. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. It's all about understanding what something is supposed to do. This coupling needs to carry energy from the crystal, matrix to the fusion chamber. It doesn't matter if it's human tech or alien tech, energy still flows the same way. But the quantum resonance patterns are completely different from human technology, Lyra said. Jake shrugged. Yeah, but electricity is still electricity. It wants to flow from high energy to low energy. If you give it a good path, it'll take it. If you don't, it'll find its own way and probably break something. Lyra found herself impressed by Jake's simple, direct way of thinking. Most engineers she knew would spend days calculating quantum field interactions and energy cascade probabilities. Jake just looked at what was broken and figured out how to fix it. On the second day, Jake ran into his biggest problem yet. The main fusion crystal was not just cracked, it was completely shattered. Without it, the engine couldn't maintain the controlled fusion reaction that powered the ship, and Jake had no idea how to make a replacement. This is the heart of the whole system, Lyra explained. These crystals take years to grow in our laboratories. They must be perfect, without any flaws, or they will explode when exposed to fusion energy. Jake studied the broken pieces. The crystal was beautiful, even in fragments. It was completely clear but seemed to hold tiny galaxies of light inside. He could see how the internal structure was designed to focus and contain enormous amounts of energy. What if we don't need to replace it? Jake said finally. What do you mean? Jake picked up the largest piece of the broken crystal. Look at this. The break is clean along the crystal's natural fault lines. What if instead of one big crystal, we use several smaller ones working together? Lyra stared at him. That is impossible. The quantum resonance would be unstable. The energy patterns would interfere with each other. Maybe, Jake said. But what if we tune each piece to a slightly different frequency, like instruments in a band? They don't all play the same note, but they harmonize together. For the next 6 hours, Jake carefully examined each piece of the broken crystal. He used every scanner and measuring device he could find to map the internal structure. Slowly, he began to see a pattern. The crystal wasn't just one uniform piece. It was made up of dozens of smaller sections, each one tuned to handle a specific type of energy. I think I understand how this works, Jake said. It's not really one crystal. It's like a choir of crystals all singing together. When it was whole, they were all in perfect harmony. Now, we just need to get them back in tune. Jake spent the entire third day carefully reshaping and polishing the crystal fragments. He used techniques he had learned working on human focusing, crystals, but adapted them for the alien material. Each piece had to be exactly the right size and shape to resonate properly with the others. Lyra helped by explaining how the quantum fields were supposed to interact. She found herself fascinated by Jake's approach. He combined precise scientific measurement with an almost artistic understanding of how the pieces should fit together. When Jake finally installed the rebuilt crystal array, both he and Lyra held their breath. Jake slowly powered up the fusion chamber. The crystals began to glow, first one, then another, then all of them together. Instead of the harsh white light of the original crystal, the array created a beautiful rainbow of colors that danced and swirled like aurora in the night sky. It's working, Lyra whispered. But the energy output it's higher than before. Jake grinned as he watched the energy readings. Sometimes when you put something back together, you can make it better than it was. The multiple crystals can handle different types of energy loads better than one big crystal. But the biggest surprise came when Jake connected the repaired engine to the ship's bio-neural network. He had read about these systems, but had never worked on one before. The ship's computer wasn't just artificial intelligence, it was designed to think and feel like a living being. As soon as the engine came online, Jake could sense a change in the ship's entire personality. The lights seemed warmer. The humming of the system sounded more musical. Even the air seemed cleaner and fresher. "She's happy," Lyra said with wonder in her voice. "The ship is actually happy. I have never felt her respond like this before." Jake ran his hand along one of the ship's smooth walls. He could swear he felt a gentle vibration like a cat purring. "I think she knows she's been healed instead of just repaired." Over the next few hours, Jake finished connecting all the systems. Everything worked better than he had hoped. The engine ran smoother than the original design specifications. The power distribution was more efficient. Even the ship's artificial gravity felt more natural. When Jake finally powered down his tools and stepped back, both he and Lyra were amazed by what they had accomplished. The ship looked exactly the same on the outside, but Jake could sense that something fundamental had changed. It felt more alive, more aware, more happy. "I have never seen a repair like this," Lyra said. "You have not just fixed my ship. You have improved her in ways I did not think possible." Jake packed up his tools, feeling tired but satisfied. "She's a good ship. She just needed someone to listen to what she was trying to tell us." "How much do I owe you?" Lyra asked. Jake thought about it. The parts had cost him quite a bit, and he had worked for 3 solid days. But looking at Lyra's ship, running better than new, he felt like he had been paid already by the challenge of solving the puzzle. "Don't worry about it," Jake said. "Just promise me you'll take better care of her." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. In her culture, such generosity from a stranger was almost unheard of. "You are a remarkable person, Jake Martinez. I hope someday I can repay your kindness." As Jake watched Lyra prepare for departure, he felt good about the work he had done. He had no idea that word of his repair job was already spreading through alien communication networks. The human who could not only fix Zephyrian technology, but actually improve it, was going to become very famous very quickly, and he had no idea that his passenger was about to bring the entire Zephyrian fleet down on his small station. Jake was finishing his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming throughout Frontier Station Alpha 7. The harsh sound echoed through the corridors as red warning lights flashed on every wall. Jake had heard those alarms before, but never this loud or this urgent. He ran to the nearest viewing window and looked out into space. What he saw made his blood turn cold. 3 massive warships hung in the darkness just outside the station. They were clearly alien, with the same flowing design as Lyra's ship, but these vessels were enormous. Each one was easily 10 times the size of the entire station. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. Their hulls shifted through different colors like oil on water. Strange energy patterns danced along their surfaces. And most frightening of all, Jake could see dozens of weapon ports open along their sides like hungry mouths. The station's communication system crackled to life. "Attention, Frontier Station Alpha 7, a voice said in perfect English. "This is Admiral Caney of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. We know you are harboring Her Royal Majesty. Surrender her immediately, or face the consequences." Jake felt confused. Royal Majesty? The only alien on the station was Lyra, and she was just a traveler whose ship he had repaired. Unless... Jake's stomach dropped as pieces started falling into place. Lyra's advanced ship. Her perfect knowledge of alien technology. The way she carried herself with quiet confidence. And now, 3 warships demanding the return of royalty. Jake ran to the docking bay where Lyra's ship was still parked. He found her standing beside her vessel, but she looked completely different. Gone was the concealing environmental suit. Instead, she wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Her skin was pale blue-white and seemed to glow with its own inner light. Her eyes were large and silver, like mirrors reflecting distant stars. But it was the crown on her head that made everything clear. It was made of the same crystal material as her ship's engine, and it pulsed with contained energy. Delicate metal work formed patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than Jake's eyes could process. "Jake," Lyra said, and her voice was different, too. It carried authority and power that made the air itself seem to listen. "I owe you an explanation." "You're not just some traveler, are you?" Jake said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "I am Queen Lyra Veltar, of the Zephyrian Empire. My people control more than 300 star systems. The warships outside belong to my personal fleet." Jake sat down heavily on a nearby crate. "A queen. I fixed a queen's ship." "You did much more than that," Lyra said. "You saved my life. The pirates who attacked me were assassins sent to kill me before I could reach the peace negotiations with your government. When my escort was destroyed and my ship disappeared, my people assumed I was dead." Through the docking bay windows, Jake could see smaller ships launching from the massive warships. "Are they here to arrest me?" "No," Lyra said firmly. "They are here to take me home. But Jake, I need you to understand something. What you did for me, repairing my ship, treating me with kindness when you thought I was just another stranded traveler. This is not common in the galaxy. Most species judge others by their power or wealth. You judged me by whether I needed help." One of the smaller ships landed in the docking bay with a soft hum. The door opened, and 6 figures in elaborate uniforms stepped out. They were clearly Zephyrian like Lyra, but their movements were sharp and military. They carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. The lead figure, a tall male with silver markings on his forehead, approached Lyra and dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty, we have been searching for you for weeks. When we detected your ship's unique quantum signature, we feared the worst." "Rise, Admiral Caney," Lyra said. "I am unharmed, thanks to this human." She gestured toward Jake. Admiral Caney looked at Jake with surprise and something that might have been respect. "This is the human who repaired your ship? Our engineers said it would be impossible for a primitive mechanic to understand Zephyrian technology." "Jake Martinez is far from primitive," Lyra said. "He not only repaired my ship but improved it beyond its original specifications. The bio-neural network has never responded so positively to any engineer." Jake felt very small surrounded by these powerful aliens. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Admiral Caney said seriously. "Most beings would have either refused to help or demanded payment they knew you could not afford. Your actions have created a debt that the Zephyrian Empire will not forget." More ships were arriving now. Jake could see through the windows that the docking bay was filling with alien vessels. Beings in elaborate uniforms were setting up some kind of command center. The quiet little station was turning into the center of an interstellar diplomatic incident. "I have to return to my duties," Lyra said to Jake. "The peace negotiations cannot continue without me. But before I go, I want you to know that what you did for me will not be forgotten. You have shown me that humans are far more than we believed." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Lyra was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My people have always seen humans as a young species, brave but crude, technically skilled but lacking wisdom. What you showed me is that sometimes the most advanced technology in the galaxy cannot match simple human kindness. Admiral Caney stepped forward. Your Majesty, we must depart. The peace summit has been delayed too long already. Lyra nodded, then turned back to Jake. The negotiations I was attending will determine the future relationship between my people, your people, and several other species. What I learned here will influence those decisions. Jake didn't fully understand what she meant, but he could sense that something important was happening. Will I see you again? Perhaps, Lyra said with a smile that seemed to light up the entire docking bay. The galaxy has become a much smaller place since you repaired my ship. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to depart, Jake watched from the observation deck. Lyra's ship, now running perfectly, took its place in the center of a formation of warships. The entire fleet moved with a grace and coordination that was beautiful to watch. But as they jumped to hyperspace in a flash of twisted light, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't imagine. He had no idea that news of his actions was already spreading throughout the galaxy, or that several very dangerous people were now very interested in the human mechanic who had earned the friendship of an alien queen. The station commander, AOE, nervous man named Captain Brooks, found Jake still standing at the observation window. Martinez, what the hell just happened here? Do you have any idea what kind of diplomatic incident you almost caused? Jake turned away from the empty space where the fleet had been. I fixed someone's ship, Captain. Same as always. That wasn't. Just someone, Captain Brooks said. That was the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, and now every intelligence agency from here to the galactic core is going to want to know exactly what you did for her. Jake sighed and headed back to his repair shop. I guess I better get back to work then. People are still going to need their ships fixed. As Jake walked through the corridors of the station, he noticed people staring at him differently. Word was already spreading about what had happened. The mechanic who befriended an alien queen was going to be famous whether he wanted to be or not, and in the depths of space, other ships were already changing course toward Frontier Station Alpha 7. Some carried diplomats and reporters. Others carried people with much darker intentions. Jake's simple act of kindness had started a chain of events that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. But for now, Jake just wanted to go back to his shop and work on something simple, like a broken hyperdrive or a faulty life support system. He had no idea that his peaceful days as an unknown mechanic were over forever. 3 weeks after Queen Lyra left Frontier Station Alpha 7, Jake's life had become completely crazy. News reporters from dozens of different species filled the station's corridors. Diplomats in expensive suits asked him the same questions over and over. And everywhere he went, people pointed and whispered about the mechanic who had befriended an alien queen. Jake tried to keep working, but it was almost impossible. Every time he started fixing a ship, someone would interrupt him with questions. What did the Queen say to you? How did you learn alien technology? Will you work for the Zephyrian Empire now? The worst part was that Jake didn't have good answers. He had just done his job. He fixed a broken ship for someone who needed help. The fact that she turned out to be royalty was just crazy luck. Captain, Brooks called Jake to his office on a Tuesday morning. The station commander looked tired and stressed. Martinez, I need to talk to you about something important. Jake sat down in the chair across from Brooks' desk. If this is about the reporters, I'm trying to ignore them. It's not about reporters, Brooks said. It's about the peace negotiations. I just got word from Earth Command. Queen Lyra has been arguing for much better terms for humanity than anyone expected. What kind of terms? Brooks pulled up a holographic display showing star charts and trade routes. Technology sharing agreements, new trade routes through Zephyrian space, joint exploration missions. The kind of deals that could advance human civilization by centuries. Jake stared at the display. Why would she do that? According to our diplomats, she keeps talking about human ingenuity and character. Apparently, your little repair job made quite an impression on her. Jake felt uncomfortable. I just fixed her ship. You did more than that, Brooks said. You showed her something about humanity that changed her mind about our entire species. The problem is, not everyone is happy about it. Brooks pulled up another display, this one showing intelligence reports. We've been tracking increased activity from several extremist groups, both alien and human. Some aliens think Lyra is being too generous to an inferior species. Some humans think she's trying to make us dependent on alien technology. That's ridiculous, Jake said. Maybe, but these groups are dangerous. We've intercepted communications suggesting they might try to disrupt the negotiations. Or worse, they might try to eliminate the person they blame for influencing the Queen. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Me. You, Brooks confirmed. I'm recommending that you accept one of the job offers you've received. Get off this station and somewhere safer. Jake had received dozens of job offers since the story broke. Major corporations wanted to hire him to study alien technology. Universities offered him teaching positions. The Terran fleet wanted him as a technical advisor. Even some alien governments had made offers. I don't want those jobs, Jake said. I like fixing ships. I like working with my hands. I don't want to be famous. Sometimes we don't get to choose, Brooks said gently. Your actions have made you a symbol, whether you want to be or not, and symbols attract both friends and enemies. That evening, Jake was working alone in his shop when the lights suddenly went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Jake grabbed a wrench and moved toward the door, but it was already too late. 3 figures in black combat suits stepped into his shop. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, and they carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Jake could see alien text on their equipment, but he couldn't read it. Jake Martinez, the lead figure said through a voice modulator. You have interfered in matters beyond your understanding. Who are you? Jake asked, gripping his wrench tighter. We are the Koth Collective's Purity Council, the figure said. Your corruption of Queen Lyra's judgment threatens the natural order of the galaxy. Inferior species must know their place. Jake had heard of the Koth Collective. They were one of the 3 major galactic powers, along with the Zephyrians and the Human Federation, but he had never heard of a Purity Council. I didn't corrupt anyone, Jake said. I just fixed a ship. You made her believe that humans are equal to evolved species, another figure said. This heresy must be corrected. The lead figure raised his weapon. Your death will send a clear message. The natural order will be restored. Jake dove behind his workbench as energy bolts sizzled through the air where he had been standing. The smell of burned metal filled the shop as the alien's weapons tore through his equipment. Station security! Jake shouted into his communicator. Armed intruders in Repair Bay 7! Security is already dealt with, the lead figure said. You are alone, human. Jake crawled along the floor, trying to reach his emergency toolkit. If he could get to the plasma torch, he might have a chance. But the aliens were spreading out, cutting off his escape routes. Then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, Jake heard new sounds, the hum of different energy weapons and the sharp crack of combat. Someone else had joined the fight. When the emergency lights came back on, Jake saw a figure in silver armor standing over the three unconscious aliens. The newcomer's helmet retracted, revealing a familiar face with silver markings and glowing eyes. "Admiral Caney?" Jake said in amazement. "Her Majesty was concerned for your safety," the Zephyrian admiral said. It seems her concerns were justified. More Zephyrian soldiers entered the shop, securing the prisoners and checking for additional threats. Jake stood up slowly, his legs shaking from adrenaline. "How did you know to come here?" Jake asked. "We have been monitoring communications throughout this sector," Admiral Caney explained. "When we detected Koth military codes being used near this station, we investigated. These are not random extremists. They are Koth Special Forces." Jake looked at the unconscious aliens. "Why would the Koth government want to kill me?" "Not the official government," Admiral Caney said. "But there are factions within the Koth Collective that oppose any cooperation with younger species. They see Queen Lyra's new policies as a threat to their philosophy of racial superiority." Captain Brooks arrived with a squad of station security guards. He looked around the destroyed shop with amazement. "What happened here?" "An assassination attempt," Admiral Caney said, "and proof that the peace negotiations have enemies who will stop at nothing to prevent cooperation between our species." Jake sat down on an undamaged crate, suddenly feeling very tired. "All I did was fix a ship." "You did much more than that," Admiral Caney said. "You proved that humans have something many advanced species have lost: the ability to help others without expecting reward. Queen Lyra has built her new policies around that simple truth." "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now we make sure you stay alive," Admiral Caney said. "Her Majesty has requested that you be brought to the negotiations under Zephyrian protection. Your safety is now a matter of Imperial security." Jake looked around his destroyed shop. His tools were scattered and broken. His workbenches were burned and twisted. Everything he had built over 5 years was ruined. "I guess I don't have much choice," Jake said. "You always have a choice," Admiral Caney said. "But some choices shape the future of entire civilizations. Your repair work has already started changes that cannot be stopped. The question now is whether you will help guide those changes or let others control them." As Jake packed the few tools that survived the attack, he realized that his quiet life as an unknown mechanic was truly over. He was being pulled into events that involved the fate of billions of beings across the galaxy. And it all started because he couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. The Zephyrian ship that would take him to the peace negotiations was already waiting in the docking bay. In a few hours, Jake would be traveling to a diplomatic summit where the future of human civilization would be decided. He had no idea that the assassination attempt was just the beginning. The enemies of peace had much bigger plans than killing one human mechanic. They intended to start a war that would reshape the galaxy, and Jake Martinez was about to become the most important person in that conflict, whether he wanted to be or not. The Peace Summit was held on a neutral space station called Unity Point, floating in empty space between the 3 major galactic powers. Jake had never seen anything like it. The station was enormous, with sections designed by each species to accommodate their different needs. Human areas were practical and efficient. Zephyrian sections flowed with artistic curves and changing lights. Koth areas were geometric and imposing, built to show strength and order. Jake felt very out of place among the diplomats and leaders who filled the station's corridors. Everyone else wore expensive clothes and carried themselves with the confidence of people who shaped the fate of worlds. Jake wore his cleanest work clothes and carried a simple tool bag that Admiral Caney had given him. Queen Lyra met him at the docking bay when he arrived. She looked even more impressive in her formal royal robes, but her smile was warm and genuine when she saw him. "Jake, thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is not the life you chose, but your presence here is more important than you realize." "I still don't understand why," Jake said. "I'm just a mechanic." "You are the proof that my new policies are based on truth rather than sentiment," Lyra explained as they walked through the station. "When I tell the other leaders that humans have valuable qualities, they think I am being emotional. When they meet you, they will see what I mean." The main conference room was huge, with a circular table that could seat dozens of delegates. Representatives from hundreds of different species sat around it, but the real power belonged to three groups: the humans, led by President Chen and a team of diplomats; the Zephyrians, led by Queen Lyra and her advisors; and the Koth, led by Supreme Commander Drax, a massive being whose skin looked like polished stone. Jake sat in a small section reserved for technical advisors, trying to stay invisible. But he noticed that many of the delegates kept looking at him and whispering to each other. Word had spread about the human mechanic who had influenced an alien queen. The negotiations had been going on for weeks before Jake arrived, and they were not going well. The Koth delegation kept insisting that younger species like humans needed to be guided by more advanced civilizations. They offered trade agreements that would make humans dependent on Koth technology while giving little in return. Queen Lyra argued for true partnership between equals, but many of her own advisors thought she was being too generous. The human delegation was split between those who wanted the best possible deal and those who worried about losing human independence. On Jake's second day at the summit, everything changed. Admiral Caney rushed into the conference room during a break between sessions. His face was grim as he approached Queen Lyra. "Your Majesty, we have a problem," he said quietly. "Our intelligence network has discovered something disturbing about the assassination attempt on Mr. Martinez." Queen Lyra frowned. "What did you find?" "The attackers were not working alone," Admiral Caney said. "We have evidence that they were part of a larger conspiracy involving high-ranking officials in the Koth military. They plan to sabotage these negotiations and blame it on human terrorists." Supreme Commander Drax overheard this conversation and approached their group. His stone-like face showed no emotion, but his eyes glowed with angry red light. "You accuse the Koth Collective of terrorism?" Drax said in a voice like grinding rocks. "We accuse certain extremist factions within your military," Admiral Caney replied carefully. "We have intercepted communications that suggest an attack is planned for tonight." Drax was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in his own language to one of his aides, who immediately left the room. "If this is true, the responsible parties will be dealt with severely. The Koth Collective does not tolerate unauthorized military action." But Jake was watching the other Koth delegates, and something bothered him. Several of them looked nervous, and one was quietly speaking into a hidden communicator. Jake had learned to read body language during his years dealing with customers who weren't telling him the whole truth about their ship problems. "I think some of your people already know about this," Jake said quietly to Drax. The Supreme Commanders, glowing eyes fixed on Jake. "Explain." Jake pointed to the nervous delegate. "That guy has been sending messages since Admiral Caney started talking. And look at his hands. They're shaking. Either he's scared or he's involved. Drax followed Jake's gaze and his expression darkened. He spoke a sharp command in the Koth language, and immediately several security guards surrounded the nervous delegate. The man tried to run, but Koth security was very efficient. When they searched the delegate, they found a device that was jamming the station's security sensors. They also found plans for an attack that would destroy the human delegation's quarters and make it look like an accident. The plan was to eliminate the human leadership and blame it on a reactor failure, Admiral Caney said as he read the captured documents. This would have ended any chance of peace and probably started a war between our species. Supreme Commander Drax looked at the evidence with disgust. These fools have brought shame on the Koth Collective. Their actions do not represent our government's official position. But the damage was already done. The conspiracy had involved dozens of high-ranking Koth officials who believed that humans and other inferior species should never be treated as equals. The revelation split the Koth delegation and threw the entire peace process into chaos. It was Jake who suggested the solution. What if we forget about trying to make everyone equal and instead focus on what each species does best? The room fell, silent as dozens of powerful beings turned to look at the human mechanic. "What do you mean?" President Chen asked. Jake stood up, feeling nervous but determined. "Look, humans are good at fixing things and solving problems in simple ways. Zephyrians are amazing at understanding energy and creating beautiful technology. Koth are incredible at organization and building things that last forever. Instead of arguing about who's better, why don't we combine our strengths?" Queen Lyra smiled. "Go on." Humans could provide technical support and innovation. Zephyrians could share their advanced technology and artistic knowledge. Koth could offer their expertise in infrastructure and long-term planning. Everyone contributes what they're best at, and everyone benefits. Supreme Commander Drax considered this. "You propose a true alliance rather than a hierarchy. I propose treating each other like friends instead of competitors," Jake said simply. The room was quiet for several minutes as the delegates thought about Jake's words. Finally, Queen Lyra stood up. "I believe Mr. Martinez has shown us the path forward," she said. "Not through dominance or submission, but through mutual respect and cooperation. Over the next 3 days, the tone of the negotiations completely changed. Instead of arguing about who was superior, the delegates began planning how to combine their different abilities. Humans would share their problem-solving techniques. Zephyrians would provide advanced technology and star charts. The Koth would contribute their knowledge of galactic infrastructure and defense. The final agreement created something new in galactic history, a true alliance between equals. Trade routes would be opened, technology would be shared. Joint exploration. Missions would push the boundaries of known space. And most importantly, each species would maintain its independence while contributing to the common good. When the summit ended, Jake was offered positions in a dozen different governments and corporations. But he turned them all down. "I want to go back to fixing ships," he told Queen Lyra as they said goodbye. "Even after everything that has happened?" Jake smiled. "Especially after everything that has happened. The galaxy is going to have a lot more ships traveling between different species now. They're going to need good mechanics." Queen Lyra laughed. "Very well. But know that you will always have friends among the Zephyrians, and if you ever need anything, you have only to ask." Jake returned to Frontier Station Alpha 7, but everything was different now. The station had been expanded to handle the new traffic between human and alien space. His repair shop had been rebuilt with the latest technology from 3 different species. And instead of working alone, he now had apprentices from several different worlds learning human mechanical techniques. The young Zephyrian student who worked with him was amazed by Jake's direct approach to problem solving. The Koth apprentice learned that sometimes the best solution was the simplest one, and the human students discovered that alien technology was not mysterious. It just used different methods to achieve the same basic goals. 6 months after the Peace Summit, Queen Lyra visited the station during a diplomatic tour. She found Jake in his shop, teaching a mixed group of students how to repair a fusion drive. "The important thing is to listen to what the machine is telling you," Jake was saying. "Every engine has its own personality. If you pay attention, it will tell you what's wrong." "And if it doesn't tell you?" asked the young Zephyrian. Jake grinned. "Then you keep asking questions until it does." Queen Lyra watched the lesson with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had hoped for: beings from different species learning from each other, sharing knowledge, and building friendships that would last for generations. After the students left, Jake and Lyra sat in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the busy traffic of ships from dozens of different